Alright folks, welcome back to Boss Economic World, the only show on the internet that treats economic headlines like a police interrogation. We keep asking questions until we get the truth. Today, we're diving into a story that sounds like a joke your uncle would tell after 3 glasses of wine. The punchline is this: in the grand circus of global politics, what if the clowns tripping over each other in the center ring were actually the most successful act? We're flying to the land of flamenco, fiestas, and accidental fiscal genius? Yes, we're talking about Spain. The date is November 18, 2025. While leaders in Washington are having their biannual Let's threaten to shut down the government festival, and Paris is one protest away from reenacting Les Miserables over budget cuts, Madrid is a picture of serene dysfunction. The politicians can't agree on anything. The parliament is more fractured than your phone screen after a night out. Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez can't get a new budget passed to save his life. And here's the kicker, folks, it's the best thing that's happened to Spain's public finances in years. Sounds completely backwards, right? Incompetence leading to prosperity? It's like discovering your laziest employee is accidentally your most profitable one because he doesn't use the expensive color printer. So, how in the world is this happening? Are Spanish politicians playing 4D chess while everyone else is playing checkers? Or did they just trip, fall, and land on a pile of money? Stick around, because we're going to peel back the layers of this Paella Paradox and show you the full picture. Let's get one thing straight. The political scene in Madrid is a mess. Prime Minister Sanchez is leading a coalition government that's about as stable as a Jenga tower in an earthquake. To pass any meaningful legislation, especially a national budget, he needs to get as many as 8 different parties to hold hands and sing Kumbaya. In today's political climate, that's about as likely as a cat learning to file its own tax returns. His critics are having a field day. They paint him as a powerless premier, a captain of a ship with no rudder, adrift in a sea of political paralysis. And you know what? They're not entirely wrong. He's struggling. But while the politicians bicker, a strange and wonderful thing is happening to the Spanish economy. Since 2021, Spain has been consistently outperforming its bigger, supposedly more serious European peers. We're talking about Germany, the industrial powerhouse, now being called the sick man of Europe again. We're talking about France, mired in social unrest. Italy? Let's just say their debt-to-GDP ratio looks like a phone number. Meanwhile, Spain's GDP grew a very healthy 0.6% in the third quarter of this year. The latest EU forecasts predict its economy will expand by 2.9% in 2025. That is more than double the pace of the rest of the Eurozone. Let that sink in. The country with the dysfunctional government is lapping the field. So what is this black magic? The secret lies in a beautifully bureaucratic, almost elegant, little rule, the rollover budget. In the United States, if Congress can't agree on a budget, the government shuts down. National parks close, federal workers get furloughed, and the whole world holds its breath as markets teeter. It's a high-stakes game of fiscal chicken. In Spain, the system is, well, more Spanish. It's more laid back. If they can't pass a new budget, the country simply continues using the last one that was approved. It's like your Netflix subscription auto-renewing. No new decisions, no arguments, you just keep getting the same service. For Spain, this means they are currently operating on a budget that was passed way back in late 2022. Think about what that means. This budget was created in a different world. It was devised before the current coalition government was formed, before all the new, fantastically expensive election promises were made. It's a relic from a more fiscally conservative time, a time before Sanchez's far-left coalition partner, Sumar, started dreaming up a multi-billion euro shopping list. And this, my friends, is the heart of the matter. The political gridlock is acting as a fiscal straitjacket, preventing the government from going on a wild spending spree. It's an accidental balanced budget amendment, enforced by pure incompetence. So what exactly have the Spanish people been saved from? Let's open up the proposed goodie bag that Sanchez and his partners wanted to hand out. Bloomberg Economics did the math, and it's a doozy. Some of the flagship measures in the coalition's plan would have added around 20 billion euros to the country's annual spending. That's about $23.2 billion, for those of you keeping score at home. To put that in perspective, 20 billion euros is more than the entire annual GDP of Montenegro and Andorra combined. It's a colossal sum of money to add to the national credit card in a single year. This spending would have widened Spain's budget deficit by as much as 1 full percentage point. Let's break it down. What was on this wish list? 1. The child subsidy. The Sumar party proposed a €200 per month subsidy for every child up to the age of 18. Now, on the surface, who can argue with that? It sounds noble. It sounds like you're helping families. But sounding nice and being economically viable are two very different things. This measure alone would have cost the Spanish taxpayer €8.5 billion a year. 2. The education push. The plan also included making nursery school free for all children up to 3 years old and a massive push to raise education spending to 5% of GDP. Another noble goal. Who doesn't want smarter kids? But this comes with a price tag of another 10 billion euros. Now, the academics and social policy ones will tell you, but boss, this is an investment. This strengthens human capital. It reduces inequality. And in a perfect world, where money grows on trees and debt doesn't exist, they might have a point. But we don't live in a perfect world. We live in a world of trade-offs. And here's the other side of that coin. First, to get this budget passed, Sanchez would have had to bargain with even more parties, each with their own pet projects and spending demands. The 20 billion euros was just the starting price. By the time it got through Parliament, it could have been far higher. Second, how do you pay for all this? You have two options, borrow or tax. 1. Borrowing. If you fund it with debt, you increase the deficit. Spain's debt-to-GDP ratio is already projected to fall below 100% next year for the first time since the pandemic, a major milestone that investors are cheering. A spending spree would reverse that beautiful trajectory, sending a signal to markets that the party is back on and the fiscal discipline is over. 2. Taxing. The coalition's plan did include massive tax increases, aiming to raise tax revenue from 42.3% of GDP to a whopping 46%. That would put Spain in the same tax league as high-tax nations like Denmark and France. What does that do? It risks hurting competitiveness, discouraging investment, and potentially slowing down the very economic growth that's making Spain look so good right now. Thanks to the glorious gridlock, neither of these things is happening. The spending plans are dead on arrival. The tax hikes are a fantasy. The politicians are stuck, and the economy, by sheer luck, is on a much healthier path. To truly appreciate the bizarre beauty of Spain's situation, you have to look at how other countries are handling their own political dramas. The USA, as we mentioned, America's approach is a masterclass in self-sabotage. The constant threat of shutdowns and debt defaults creates massive uncertainty. It's not a bug, it's a feature of their political system. According to Bloomberg Economics, the last big shutdown fight erased $100 billion from annual growth. The US system forces action through crisis, while the Spanish system prevents action, thus avoiding crisis. France, across the Pyrenees, President Macron has a different problem. He can pass his budget, but only by using a controversial constitutional power that allows the government to bypass a parliamentary vote. The result? He got his pension reforms, but he also got massive, crippling strikes and a populace that feels its democracy is being ignored. It's effective, but it's tearing the country apart. Belgium, for decades, Belgium was the poster child for political paralysis, once going 541 days without a government. But here's the crucial difference, Belgium's paralysis didn't lead to fiscal prudence. Their debt is spiraling, and their governance model is a cautionary tale. This shows that gridlock itself isn't a magic wand. It has to be the right kind of gridlock, one that freezes a relatively sensible budget in place. Germany, the former engine of Europe, is sputtering. They have a stable coalition government, but it's struggling to agree on how to re-energize its aging industrial model and wean itself off cheap Russian energy. Here, a stable government isn't delivering growth. Spain's accidental success story is a paradox that stands in stark contrast to all of them. It has found a temporary cheat code, political paralysis plus a decent pre-existing budget equals unexpected economic outperformance. As Daniel Fuentes, an economics professor at Universidad de Alcalá, put it, evidence shows that rollover budgets in Spain help contain public spending. It's not a theory, it's observable fact. Now, before you all run out and vote for the most incompetent, deadlocked government you can find, let's pour some cold water on this fiesta. I'm the boss. I give you the full picture, and that includes the ugly parts. This failing upwards strategy has a shelf life. It's not a sustainable model for running a modern country. Here's why. 1. You're stuck in the past, a budget is a plan for the future. By perpetually using a budget from 2022, Spain is essentially driving a car by looking only in the rearview mirror. The world of 2025 is not the world of 2022. What about new challenges? The rapid rise of AI? The urgent need for green energy infrastructure? Geopolitical shocks that require a swift defense spending response? The rollover budget has no answers for these. The government has a little leeway to reallocate funds. They managed to boost defense outlays this year, but it's like trying to renovate a house using only the tools you have in one drawer. 2. It's inefficient and dumb. Over time, a static budget becomes incredibly inefficient. Some government departments might get money they no longer need, while new, critical priorities are starved for cash. It's like continuing to pay for a gym membership you never use while you can't afford a subscription to a new service you desperately need. Professor Fuentes nailed it when he warned that this leads to a loss of efficiency and credibility in public accounts. 3. The democratic deficit. People elect a government to implement a new vision. When that government, due to its own ineptitude, cannot implement any of its key policies, it erodes public trust. Voters who supported Sanchez's coalition based on promises of increased social spending are getting nothing. It creates a democratic deficit where elections have consequences, but the government can't deliver on them. This breeds cynicism and political apathy. So, is the rollover budget the only reason for Spain's success? Of course not. That's the simple headline story. The Boss Economic World audience is smarter than that. The gridlock is a major contributing factor to the fiscal health, but the underlying economic growth is being supercharged by a few other powerful engines. EU recovery funds, let's be real. It's easy to look good when Brussels is throwing money at you. Spain is one of the largest beneficiaries of the post-COVID Next Generation EU Recovery Fund, slated to receive over €140 billion in grants and loans. This is a massive, once-in-a-generation injection of capital that is funding everything from digital transformation to green energy projects. The tourism tsunami, the revenge travel phenomenon after the pandemic, has been a massive boon for Spain. Its beaches, cities, and culture are a magnet for tourists with cash to spend. In 2024, international tourism spending shattered all previous records, pouring tens of billions of euros directly into the economy. A smart energy bet. Unlike Germany, which was heavily reliant on cheap Russian gas, Spain made big, early investments in liquefied natural gas terminals and renewable energy. When the energy crisis hit in 2022, Spain was better insulated, keeping its energy prices comparatively lower and its factories running. Resilient consumers. For a variety of reasons, Spanish households have kept spending, fueling domestic demand and keeping the economic engine humming. So, the rollover budget isn't creating the growth, but it's acting as the responsible parent. It's making sure the extra money from the EU in tourism isn't immediately squandered on unsustainable new programs. It's forcing a level of discipline that the politicians themselves lack. So what does this all mean for you, whether you're an investor managing a portfolio or just a citizen trying to make sense of the world? The prevailing narrative for investors looking at Spain right now is surprisingly positive. They see a country where debt is falling, growth is strong, and the political risk is, paradoxically, reducing fiscal risk. They see the political noise, but they look at the numbers and the numbers look good. The ultimate lesson here is a deeply cynical but perhaps realistic one for our modern age. In an era of rampant populism and politicians who promise the moon to get elected, sometimes the best thing they can do for the economy is to be rendered completely and utterly powerless. Prime Minister Sanchez himself seems to get it. He recently said in an interview, "With or without a new budget, I feel very comfortable with the one we already have." It's a stunning admission. He's basically saying, I know my new plans are probably worse than the old one, so I'm happy we're stuck with it. But this happy accident can't last forever. Spain can't hit the snooze button indefinitely. At some point, they will need to pass a new budget to address the challenges of the late 2020s. The question is, when that day comes, will they have learned the lesson of their accidental success? Or will the floodgates of spending open, washing away all the hard-won gains? That, folks, is the multi-billion euro question. That's the full picture, the story behind the headlines. You heard it here first. I'm your host, the boss. Stay sharp, stay informed, and remember, sometimes the most profitable move is the one you're prevented from making. We're out.